Hello and welcome to Revision Tips for SIPS Level 6, Professional Diploma in Procurement and Supply. This is Module 2, Global Commercial Strategy, and Learning Outcome 1, which is to understand and apply the concept of commercial global strategy in organisations. So let's start by looking at the characteristics of strategic decisions. Strategic management is defined as a set of decisions and actions that result from formulation and implementation of plans designed to achieve organisation objectives. Whereas strategic decisions are actions or chosen paths as part of that strategic management process. But in order to understand strategic decisions, it's really important to understand the main tasks or the purpose of strategic management. So the main tasks involved in strategic management is to formulate an organisation's mission, vision, goals and objectives. That will define its purpose. Conduct an analysis of the organisation's internal resource capabilities. Assess the organisation's external environment. Analysing the organisation's options by matching its resources with the external environment. Identifying the most desirable course of action by evaluating each option with regards to the organisation's mission. Selecting a set of long-term objectives and grand strategies that will help the organisation achieve the most desirable option. Developing annual objectives and short-term goals which will help execute the long-term goals and objectives. And then implementing the strategic choices by allocating resources appropriately. That's matching people, structures, technologies, and performance management systems. And also evaluating the success of strategic management. In terms of the dimensions of strategic decisions, they will have at least one of the 6 dimensions described. So strategic issues that require top management decisions. And that's because of the magnitude. They typically affect the overall direction of an organisation, or the issues that require large amounts of organisational resources. So if they require a very substantial amount of HR, physical assets or other resources, they can be considered as strategic decisions, even though they may not change an organisation's future direction. The issues which affect the organisation's long-term prosperity. So these sorts of decisions usually commit an organisation's resources for a long time. So these decisions will last far into the future. The type of strategy an organisation commits itself to some extent will affect how the organisation is viewed. Then we have the issues which are future orientated. So these will be termed as strategic decisions regardless of the level of resources required. Future-orientated decisions will determine how an organisation gets to where it wants to be, according to its goal or missions. So the emphasis is putting on plans to put those in place that will enable the organisation to achieve its mission, whatever it is. The issues with multifunctional consequences. So strategic decisions, as opposed to tactical or operational decisions, affect every area of the organisation. Different departments, the competitive position, the customer mix, the organisational structure, as well as maybe even the production line of the business. So, your procurement function is one of the organisation's key strategic functions, since it works in collaboration with every business function that needs goods or services. And then issues requiring consideration of the organisation's external environment. So the immediate external environment is which an organisation operates will include its competitors, customers, suppliers, creditors, and the government, among other factors. The wider global area may also affect the organisation's decision-making. Now, the levels of decision-making. It is important that procurement has a profile that's, raised very highly within an organisation. And I think that has That has changed enormously over the last few years, but sometimes procurement still have to fight for its place. Procurement has historically focused on cost at the expense of an organisation's wider strategies. But the value of proactive procurement can add value to an organisation. That can be things like risk management, developing new revenue streams. So procurement play a key role in decisions made at every level. But typically, decision-making hierarchy has 3 levels: corporate, business, and functional. So corporate level decisions are strategic. These are made by the board of directors, the chief execs. They will involve an organisation's financial performance or non-performance or non-financial goals. Or it could be about them fulfilling their image or social responsibilities. The business level decisions are more tactical. They're made by managers who translate the statements of direction made at corporate level into objectives to help the desired positioning. They determine how an organisation will compete in selected markets with the products and services it currently offers. And then the functional level decisions are operational. These are made by managers of specific products, geographic or functional areas. Their role is to develop objectives and short-term strategies in specific departments or functions, executing decisions that have been made above them at operational or strategic level. So these functions will include procurement, finance, operations, marketing, or HR. Now that you understand the different levels of decision making within an organisation and that strategic decisions are made at the corporate level, we can examine the key features of strategic decisions. So you can see loads of words on the screen. I'm going to talk through some of them in a second, but essentially it's starting with, to what extent strategic decisions are made in the long term for an organisation. So during unsettled periods, many organisations will make decisions and contingency plans for immediate short term because they cannot make long-term plans. And depending on the product life cycle, the products manufactured by an organisation could potentially be affected for the coming years ahead. The scope of the activities. These activities could be deciding on products and services being offered, whether the organisation should concentrate on one range of products or services, or whether it should offer more broader product portfolios. The source of competitive advantage. So strategic decisions are typically relating to an organisation's competitive advantage, but also how it can be improved. Lack of clear direction affects the organisation, and there's no clearly identifiable goal to work towards. So if I just flick to this slide very quickly, you'll see on the left-hand side the Porter's generic strategies. And here, an organisation can make a decision about whether they want to appeal to the mass market, the total market, or a niche market, and whether they want to focus on cost or being different. But definitely don't get stuck in the middle, because this sort of strategy can mean that you'll go out of business quite quickly. So you do need to pick your strategic fit. And the planning, of course, from an external and internal environment. Externally, we'll look at any of the steeple factors, and internally about your culture, HR, profit, cash flow, management, and assets. Strategic decisions are going to be based on organisations' current resources and competencies, and the values and expectations in the environment. So this could be powerful internal and external stakeholders who influence strategic decisions. So, for example, senior managers can make strategic decisions that will affect and benefit both the organisations and themselves. You've got complexity. Strategic decisions are typically complex, and this is true in organisations with a wide geographical scope or a wide range of products and services. That's because it's going to involve different organisational levels, different markets, and different ranges of products. Uncertainty, strategic decisions are concerned with a whole organisation and the environment in which it operates. So the decisions are about planning the future of the organisation and looking at the bigger picture, defining that long-term goal and carrying out the organisation's mission and vision. But senior managers need to recognise and be aware of the uncertainty that arises due to the complexities and circumstances that are unpredictable in the business world. Operational decisions linked to strategy. When strategic decisions are made, operational aspects are made to align with the strategic decisions that are taken. This ensures that the business functions are streamlined to better execute the organisational strategy. Integration. To achieve this goal, managers need to integrate functionally and operationally. This means all functions of the organisation are integrated for effective strategic management. Relationships and networks. Strategic decisions will require the creation of crucial relationships and networks inside and outside the organisation. So that's relationships outside with suppliers and distributors, customers, and other stakeholders. And it's a vital ingredient of supply chain, and therefore more and more companies are seeking full integration throughout their network of suppliers and customers. And then change, strategy goes hand in hand with the management of change. The external changes that affect an organisation require constant readjustment of an organisation's resources and the culture to enable it to adapt to these changes. And the procurement professional must also be an agent for change, since change management is crucial to successful procurement transformation. Many procurement transformation projects face challenges because procurement managers do not effectively manage change or take change management seriously. So what we're looking at here is Kotter's 8-step change model. And this is how organisations manage change and the resistance to change, starting with creating a sense of urgency, building a guiding coalition. Then you form your strategic visions and initiatives and enlist your volunteer army. Enable action by removing barriers, generating short-term wins, sustaining acceleration and instituting the change at the very end. But we do have to remember that leaders can negotiate with employees to show them how the change will not affect their work or position, so as to get collaborative spirit from them. It could be, whereas the misunderstanding as the result of the misinformation. So educating your employees on what is really going to happen and opening up those channels for communication so that employees can air their views is a useful strategy to deal with resistance. Differences in views, it's natural, isn't it, that people will see things differently and they will disagree. So one possible solution there is coming up with a compromise by putting the proposed change on the table and discussing how they can work together to create a workable solution. And there's always this preference for the status quo. The form of resistance is rooted in individuals who simply are resisting to change, usually for no good. It's just that they're really comfortable in their current position. So the vocabulary of strategy, there are many terms that are used in relation to strategy, and it's important to learn these terms as they'll be used repeatedly in your study topics for strategic management. So you've got a mission, the purpose of an organisation. What does the organisation do? A vision, which is the ultimate future goal of where an organisation wants to be. Objectives, which is an aim used in strategic management to break down strategy into measurable bits. They can be short-term, long-term, and are all collectively made up of an organisation's overall strategy. A goal is the overall desired outcome of an activity of an organisation. All activities in the organisation are intended to achieve a certain goal. And then the business model is the structure of how an organisation delivers its products and services, and how in turn these products and services generate revenue. So looking at these organisational objectives, the term objective is much used term in strategic management. And as I said earlier, they're either long-term, short-term, and usually relate to profitability or return on investment. So an organisation can have different types of objectives depending on the scope of business. So a long-term objective, for example, will be a corporate objective. So an example of that might be expanding market share by 20% in 3 years. A medium-term objective is likely to be a functional objective. For example, increase sales per product line by 10% in the next year. And then a short-term objective will be a unit level, which could be to increase the units sold by each shop by 100 units each month. So goals, a general aim is that goals go hand in hand with the organisation's mission. Common goals are used to guide strategic directions of an organisation. And they usually relate to things like financial objectives, customers, something internal or corporate social responsibility, complying with regulations or legislation, or some form of development objectives around sort of team building and technical skills. But you could also be looking at things like customer loyalty. Each customer, generates the highest quality and value by earning respect and loyalty from that customer. It could be about being a market leader, leading in the marketplace by developing and delivering really useful and innovative products and services. Commitment to employees, demonstrating commitment to employees by promoting reward-based and performance-based objectives. Leadership capacity, developing leaders who achieve business results, and being a good global citizen, fulfilling your responsibilities to society. Now, as previously discussed, an organisation's strategic decision occurs at 3 main levels: strategically, tactically, and operationally. Now, strategic management and operational management are set apart mostly by decisions made at these levels. So strategic level decisions are long-term in nature and are made by senior managers, mostly directors. They're complex and highly uncertain, affecting the whole organisation. So managers at this level of decision-making need to possess conceptual skills, which give them the ability to consider the effects of internal and external influences. The tactical decisions, like strategic, are concerned with meeting objectives. It could be a very well-defined or realistic goal that's set by an organisation, and it influences the firm's strategic direction. They're medium-term and less complex. But operational decisions are ones concerned with the short-term objectives, the day-to-day running of the business. They're simple and routine in comparison to tactical or strategic decisions. So we've understood the differences in decision-making at these levels, but the differences between strategic and operational management involves situational analysis, strategy formulation and implementation and evaluation of strategies. It looks at decisions that affect the whole organisation. Formulation of company mission, visions, goals, and strategies, all of these sit within the strategic management landscape. But operational, on the other hand, is the management of activities within the operational environment, so something more functional. It could be implementing a very low-level strategy, dealing with your competitors, your creditors, your customers. So you could look at assessing the competitive position, which is an operational management control. So it looks at sort of raw materials and resources, which are your inputs, and what the outputs are in terms of products and services. You can look at creating a customer profile. So in addition to competitor profiles, operational managers would also look at customer profiles, which will help them to gauge if strategy is achievable with regards to its current customer base. So it could be, I don't know, age, gender, some sort of characteristic, their behaviour patterns, and their creditworthiness. Now, the strategic position of an organisation is affected by external environments and the impact this has on an organisation's strategy. So the resources and competencies and the expectations and level of influence of key stakeholders will also determine the strategic position. Now, according to Mitzberg's 5P strategy, which you can see on the screen, an organisation wishes to achieve or defend a certain position. So these components allow an organisation to implement a more effective strategy: plan, perspective, ploy, position, and pattern. The position strategy is therefore appropriate when an organisation's position with respect to its competitors or market is deemed crucial. Now, there are 4 factors that are crucial to an organisation's positioning: the environment in which you're operating in. Can you take advantage of opportunities and shield from threats? Your strategic capability in terms of designing strategies that will put an organisation in a situation to maximise its advantage. What are the stakeholders' expectations as well? So, for example, if stakeholders expect financial gains from a firm, the organisation strategy revolves around increasing revenues to gain profits. And then the historical and cultural influences. So you may pursue strategies that lead to success in the past. So this is why organisations use slogans such as offering new services since a certain year to show how reliable they've been over those number of years. And no organisation is an island. Each exists in a complex local and global environment, and that's affected by a number of forces. Certainly all the steeple factors that include political, economic, social, technological, legal and environmental forces. Analysis of a business environment is conducted using steepled analysis, setting out the main categories of external factors that can affect an organisation. So socially, we look at things like income and labour, health conditions, attitudes towards work and leisure. Technological, we look at emerging technology, what's available, and what's people's attitudes towards technology. Economically, you'll look at tax, inflation, and what's happening in our minor and major industries. Environmentally, looks at attitudes towards sustainability, plants, wildlife, waste disposal and recycling. And political, we'll look at government structures and the stability of those political parties and any dynamics, as well as international agreements. The legislative looks at compliance with regulating bodies, unions, and laws relating to contracts for employment. Ethically, the necessary reporting procedures and the impact of reputations on business success as well as confidentiality. And demographically looks at the total population makeup, looking at ethnic diversity, age group dynamics, gender differences and population shifts. But further analysis of the environment was conducted by analysing your industrial environment. This is carried out by Porter's forces. The model considers the 5 forces that influence the competitiveness of an organisation within an industry. So you've got the threat of potential entrants, suppliers' bargaining power, the buyer's bargaining power, and competitive rivalry within the industry. Now, strategic capabilities are the resources and capabilities that an organisation possesses. In other words, it's the strengths and weaknesses. Now, understanding these internal influences and constraints will inform the strategic choices. In order to occupy a competitive position, a business has to formulate appropriate and effective strategies. They must be achievable within the assets that the organisation currently possesses. Now, initial analysis should evaluate an organisation's assets, skills and work activities. What is it good at? What is it not good at? And what areas are there for improvement? And this is known as situational analysis. And you can do this by doing a position audit, which you can see on the screen. So a position audit is an analysis of where are we today, where do we want to go, and how are we going to get there? So you look at your competencies. Some are core competencies and some are not. Looking at the balances, identifying your strengths and weaknesses and your critical success factors. But you do have these rigidities and comparisons. There are some rigidities that prevent change and comparisons from historical benchmarking. So the core competencies, the bit right in the middle, are activities or processes that underpin an organisation's competitive advantage. They create and generate the ability to meet critical success factors of particular customers better than others in a way that makes it difficult for others to imitate. Now, the purpose of profit-seeking organisation is typically to meet the expectations of a particular class of stakeholders, its shareholders. The strategic position that an organisation seeks is one that will meet the needs of the most important, most influential stakeholders. Now, organisations have historically focused on the expectations of their shareholders rather than those of their stakeholders, specifically with regards to providing a return on investment in the form of dividends. The universal focus was on profit maximisation, reporting considered only the financial health of the business. But in today's business environment, it's subject to a high level of consumer pressure, and corporate social responsibility is increasingly an integral part of the business model, which is an approach that contributes to the wider social, economic, and environmental good. Now, stakeholders can be divided into three groups. We've got the internal stakeholders, managers, directors, employees. These all work within the boundaries of an organisation and have a key interest. The external stakeholders include the government, the regulatory bodies and interest groups, trade unions and such. But we've also got some that are actually connected, and whilst they're actually external, they are connected to an organisation, either commercially or contractually. So this stakeholder group will include your financiers, like your bank, customers, suppliers and distributors. Now, cultural and historical influences will also affect an organisation's positioning. Today, many work, they're operating in a digital age, and therefore different cultures are working close together. While the interaction of culture is exciting, an organisation that is not able to manage this culture blend has a lot to lose. So you should learn to manage cross-cultural interactions that they come across when dealing with different stakeholders. So the first one is power distance. This is the degree to which people accept that they are unequal, such as the people with and without power. And this is Hofstede's cultural dimensions. And Hofstede explains that power distance in some organisations is because employees accept that top managers have high power and don't resist. Then we have individualism. So this is the measure of the strength that ties people with the community. Cultures with high individualism have loose connections and are likely to push for the interest as opposed to the interest of the community. Then we have masculinity. This is the degree to which society values male and female roles. Cultures with high masculinity scores have certain expectations of men, such as to be the provider and to be assertive. In such societies, if women work outside the home, they're expected to have separate professions from men. In low masculine societies, on the other hand, the dividing line of roles are blurred, and men and women work together across many professions. Uncertainty avoidance index is the degree to which societies are comfortable with uncertain situations. In cultures where high uncertainty avoidance exists, they try to avoid ambiguous situations as much as possible. They need rules and order and get clarity. Long-term versus short-term orientation. This is much about the society values and whether they value long-term traditions as opposed to short-term values. Long-term organisational cultures hold on to traditions because they feel they're very important. But for short-term cultures, traditions are not valued and are not welcomed. And then the final one, which is the indulgent versus the restraint. This is the degree to which society allows gratification of human desires relating to enjoying life and having fun. A restraint society controls these gratifications of the needs by regulating such strict social norms, whereas high indulgence societies have fun and live for today. They tend to be liberal of social norms. Now, organisations have to make choices regarding their future in terms of the direction pursuing a specific strategy that will move them forward and what methods to pursue the strategies. So it's about formalisation of and selection between alternative courses of action. So these various courses of actions exist, such as generic strategies to be used, or whether to consolidate, grow, withdraw from markets. So the things that make up strategy will include: what is our aspiration? Where will we play and where will we not play? How will we win? Which capabilities need to be in place and what management systems must be established? And strategic choices at an international level relate to an organisation's international strategy. This is regarding the business conducted outside of its national boundaries. Also, to evaluate growth and development choices, you have these, the Boston Consulting Group matrix on the right-hand side. So this is showing you the market growth and market share, considering sort of 4 options really. You've either got question marks, which have low market share, high market growth, stars, high market share, high market growth, dogs have low market share, low market growth, and cash cows, high market share and low growth. Now, strategy in action is the process of ensuring that the chosen strategies are implemented. Strategy in action is the same as strategic implementation, which involves mobilising organisational resources and capabilities in order to execute a chosen strategy. There are 2 stages and processes in developing a strategy. Is the strategy intended, or is it the strategy emergent? Intended strategies develop as a result of formal planning and decision-making processes. These strategies are developed by managers who scan the environment and use strategic management tools for strategy formulation. The intended strategies are achieved by using strategic planning systems, step-by-step chronological procedure used to develop or coordinate your intended strategy. Emergent strategies, on the other hand, are strategies that develop as a result of decision made within an organisation over a period of time. They can be organic and develop as part of an organisation's previous decisions and in response to marketplace factors. And that is the end of Learning Outcome 1. Thank you for watching.